Always a pleasure to welcome you to the program. Thank you for joining us. I'm Felicity Ezewike. At the just concluded fourth summit of the European Political Community, the United Kingdom announced an investment of £84 million in projects in Africa and the Middle East aimed at tackling illegal migration at source. This move comes on the heels of the controversial UK-Rwanda deal to relocate some asylum seekers from the UK to Rwanda for processing and resettlement. It was widely criticized for being inhumane and ineffective. Now, this announcement by the new Prime Minister, Cristiano, is the latest development in the ongoing debate on migration policy, an issue that has become increasingly politicized, with many countries struggling to balance humanitarian concerns with national security and economic interests. The £84 million investment is aimed at addressing the root causes of migration, according to the government, such as poverty and instability in countries of origin. But will this approach be effective in reducing illegal migration to the UK, where others have failed? And what are the potential consequences for Africa and the Middle East? My guest is a senior researcher and lecturer. He joins us from Johannesburg, South Africa, Dr. Cristiano. Doctor, thank you very much for joining us, as always.
Thank you so much for having me, Felicity. It's always a pleasure to interact with you.
Indeed. There doesn't seem to be much details at the moment. We know specific amounts have been given to specific projects. You may know more. What's your take? First off, is there some details that you could share with us? And what's your take on this new approach? And how does it, in real terms, differ from the previous Rwanda deal?
Yes, thank you very much for the question, Felicity. Yeah, first of all, there are more details, in fact, because it's true. I mean, you mentioned the total amount that is 84 billion pounds, but I went to check a bit how they were divided, and some part. Actually, first of all, I would like to say that the money will not reach the entire continent, but specific realities in Africa. So, I mean, one part, I think about 13 million pounds, there will be for migration and development programs in North and East Africa, and about 20 million, there will be for key host and transit countries. There should be, if I recall, Libya, of course, but also Egypt, that is hosting a lot of Sudanese, Ethiopia, and Chad. And there will be also another amount, a bit more than 20 million, that will be for programs across the Middle East and wider region to support, of course, the Syrians. And finally, there will be also direct funding to support communities in countries affected directly by problems of a mass migration, like again Chad and Ethiopia and Sudan. And there will be also, if I'm not mistaken, there will be also 2 million that will be allocated to support the work of IOM in Libya. So that's how the money, the entire amount has been divided. So, for example, nothing would be for Nigeria, given that you are in Nigeria. So that's how. And of course, this has nothing to do with a completely different approach of what was the Rwanda approach, because, of course, in this case, as also the Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary said, this is trying to tackle, to thwart the causes of mass migration directly in the countries of origin of these people. So it's, as I said, this is a completely different approach. It's not a new approach, of course. Actually, I would say that it's a very old approach. Actually, it's much older than outsourcing outsourcing the problem of migration like it was attempted, like it was done, the attempt to Rwanda. And I just hope that this way, this time it will be more effective to try to help people in their homeland actually. So preventing even people to start off the journey.
Okay,
yes, please.
It's quite, some would say it's even more ambitious than the Rwanda deal, because this is targeting the source. The source itself has embedded problems of its own, that it's still, insecurity and all of that. Just to mention that the government is focusing on humanitarian and health support, skills training and job opportunities, access to education. These are some of the areas that they wish to invest in. But how can they do that? Can they do that in isolation? Are there non-governmental organizations or institutions that they wish to utilize? Or is it going to be the government of these countries?
Well, of course, they cannot do it in isolation, and it would be fundamental, first of all, the role played by the government of the concerned country. But the problem is that in some of these countries, we have, like in Sudan, for example, or in Libya, we have a stable governments, or in the case of Libya, we have also two governments that claim to be the official government of the country. So it will be also fundamental, as usual, the role of both governmental and non-governmental organizations that are on the field, that they have contacts, they have the right contacts, they perfectly know the situation on the field, and they know the need of the local population. And of course, they are among the most reliable, or possibly the most reliable interlocutor for the UK, of course. So for sure, to respond to your previous question, of course it is very much, it's very ambitious as an attempt. As I said, it's not a new attempt, and of course, it's ambitious and even more challenging, because you don't just give money to someone else and monitor that someone else will do what you should do, like in the case of Rwanda. In this case, you really need to take care of where the money goes, and it will be invested in beneficial program for the vulnerable people in those countries, in order for them not to flee the country, not to leave the country. Of course, it's much more challenging than outsourcing asylum claims, actually.
Yeah. Well, there's a part of that question that I don't think I got your response to, and that is,
yes, please.
How are they going to do this? Would it be in collaboration with the countries that they are targeting, the countries you mentioned, like Libya, Sudan, Chad, and Ethiopia, or is it going to be an independent approach with maybe a non-governmental organization? How would this really work? Because if you're targeting the source, you cannot do it in isolation.
No, of course. I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm sorry if there were problems, but I think I responded. Of course, you cannot do that. The UK cannot do that in isolation. First of all, they have to try to rely on the governments of this country. The question is that while there are some of these countries that have more or less stable government, so you can rely on them, there are some other countries like Sudan and Libya, where of course you cannot have a valid interlocutor in the governments of those countries, and that's why it will be essential, it will be crucial, it will be fundamental, the work of the international organizations that are on the field. Both governmental organizations and non-governmental organizations that are on the field sometimes for decades. They have the right contact. They know the need of the local population. They know what to invest and how and where to invest the money that they will receive from the UK government. Of course, it is a matter of trust, but of course, I'm sure that the British government will trust the IOM rather than the UNHCR or big NGOs like the Norwegian Refugee Council, the Danish Refugee Council, who are very solid.
I'm sorry to interject. I just have to. You talked about trust and accountability. It's going to be an ingredient in this effort, and we know, without trying to be coy, that African leaders are not known for their accountability. So will there be any way that these monies that will be released to this government will be monitored by the UK?
I think that the UK will have, I'm not sure if, until now this has not been disclosed, I'm not sure if they will rely directly to the officer, to the official of the main organization on the field, or if they will integrate this organization with some envoys. But in any case, I'm sure that the UK, the British government, will not rely a lot on the local governments, but will rely much more on the international organizations that are on the field. Of course, you cannot rely on the Libyan government, that there are even two governments claiming to be the official government. You cannot rely a lot on the Sudanese government, where there is an ongoing civil war for more than a year now. But you can rely, and I'm sure that the British government will do so, you can rely on the officials of the international organizations that are on the field for years, if not for decades, and they know exactly the situation on the field. They have the right contact, they have the right network on the field, and above all, they know exactly the need of the local populations. They know in which programs the money coming from London should be invested, in order that this money will not be dispersed or wasted, of course.
Let me be a child and say, pink is crossed, that trust will be validated eventually. But let's look at it. Let's look at it from other areas. You are a researcher. You've done a lot of work with migration, illegal migration, and issues around it. We agreed that the amount cannot cover the entire continent. Specific countries have been picked, but do you think this new approach will have real impact in reducing illegal migration to the UK?
Well, this is very hard to say. I mean, the UK is making a concrete effort investing such an amount of money on that. If this this project will have a good outcome, we cannot predict now. We hope that, it will give some benefits, and we hope that they will give some good results. As I said, this is a very old approach. It's an approach, I think also the last time that we discussed about the Rwanda plan. There are countries all around the world that are regularly holding meetings with African leaders in order to foster cooperation with Africa, also in the field of migration. And I also mentioned, I remember the effort and the plan that was conceived by Italy, that is my home country, that I think in January they received, not all, but many African leaders. Always because the idea is to help Africans, at their home. I mean, to prevent people to start off the often very dangerous journey. Of course, the intention of this leader, I mean, I don't know how much is an intention of, I mean, that is founded on empathy towards this population, and how much is in the interest of the host country. We can, of course, there will be also personal interest. But as I said, we cannot really, I mean, we have to hope that this time there will be less money wasted than the amount of money that has been wasted in the past in similar effort by European countries.
Okay.
But at the moment, more than a hope, I don't think that no one can give you a guarantee that this will work out. A 100% guarantee at the moment, I don't think that no one, neither in Africa, neither in Addis Ababa, where the African Union is based, nor in London, it can give you any guarantee that this effort will have a 100% good outcome.
Doctor, to be fair, guarantees are, in this case, will be like a pipe dream, but the level at which it can help, I guess, is where the eyes are. So let's look at Africa per se. What role do you think African countries could play in addressing migration, and how can they ensure that the interests of their people are protected in these partnerships that we're talking about? Because if you are not working directly with the government, you're working with international organizations, there has to be a way for the government to know what comes to the people.
Well, of course, the African countries, the African government, or the African regional and sub-regional organization can try to guarantee their own interest. First of all, in investing the money in a proper way. That means, and here again we are. I mean, the doubt that you raised before about the fact that the government, if can be reliable or not. We have to think that the government in Africa, they do their own interest and the interest of their citizens. So of course, with the money that has been received and that they will be received, of course, they should make massive investment. On the other side, while, for example, there are two main causes. Also, I saw that the UK government rose in their statements, and one is conflict, and the other is the problem of climate change. That it's a growing problem, of course, also in Africa. For the climate change, I think, but this is my personal opinion, more can be done, because in any case, the money, it's something. Of course, the climate change cannot be stopped, but it's not the African countries that they can stop the climate change, but in any case, it's easier, in my opinion, to find a solution for displaced person because of natural disasters.
Okay.
I'm more doubtful on the problem of the conflicts, because you know that conflicts, there can be civil conflicts, there are a lot of interest, and they entail a lot of money that is spent, for example, investing in weapons, and on the fact that this conflict, everyone would like that all the conflicts there in Africa, that there are quite a number, because we know maybe the two or three that are most famous, but there are quite a number of ongoing conflicts in Africa.
Doctor, let me interject again. Yes. There is something I'd like, your submission brought it to mind. What would be a better approach? Because some of these countries, in terms, what we talk about climate change, insecurity, and economic challenges, has to do with a leadership. We have countries where we have military rule in 2024, so shouldn't the focus be maybe more of a partnership with international organizations like the UN, the AU and other bodies to try and bring peace back to these countries and, like you said, focus more on environment, climate change issues than this broader effort of trying to say, okay, we want to treat it at the source and we're looking more at the humanitarian angle. It is a multifaceted challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, of course, it's a very multifaceted challenge, Felicity. The question that, you said, yeah, we should rely on the international organization, but in the end, also international organization they need to have local reference. They need to have a local, they need to have contacts and partnership with governments in Africa. You cannot, you cannot, overlook the role of the African governments. You have to deal with them. And of course, these entail a number of problems because we all know that many countries in Africa still have unstable governments. There have been even recently change of governments. We have been also recently, different, change of attitudes in several countries, like, the fact that, for example, Burkina, Mali, and Niger, they left the ECOWAS and they want to set up an organization on their own. Of course we have, and that's how the big challenge is, of course. That's why we can't, of course, the governments, the rule of the governments, is fundamental. That's why we really need to rely on international actors on the field who have to try to not, who have really make a lot of efforts in order that all that money that should be invested won't be wasted. Okay. But of course, the risk that the money will be wasted is there. We cannot eliminate, we cannot cancel the risk that this money won't be invested in a proper way.
Quite unfortunate, for us to always factor the corruption in everything that we do. Anyways, we have less than 10 minutes to go, so I want you to talk about this global trend. The UK's announcement, some people say, is part of a larger global trend of externalizing migration control. What implications does this have for global migration governance and, importantly, the rights of migrants?
Well, Felicity, as I said, this attempt that the new government of the UK is doing is not to lean to outsourcing migration issues, in the sense that outsourcing, as I said, is a different thing. Outsourcing is to pay someone to do what you should do. But in this case, I wouldn't talk about outsourcing migration.
Yeah, but if you look at it from a purely layman's point of view, it is a form of outsourcing, because the goal of trying to target the source is to ensure that those people still do not come. You no longer have a responsibility. This responsibility lies at the origin. So one would look at it in that context and think that this is also a way of outsourcing responsibility.
Well, but you cannot compare the fact that this country, they send the money not to leave their own country, with the fact, like the previous government in the UK wanted to do is to take all the asylum seekers arriving in the UK and to send them to Rwanda. I mean, it's not, honestly, I wouldn't say that it's the same, the same situation. In this particular case, and as I said, if you talk in this case about outsourcing, you should have talked about outsourcing for decades, because this solution, the solution to try to help people at home, it's very old. I mean, it's not a new. I mean, it's not a new kind of initiative. You know, it's something that countries, let's say developed countries, have been trying to do for decades. As I said, was the Rwanda plan. That was a novelty, let's say so, but not the attempt not to leave. I mean, trying not that these people, they want to leave their own country. In this case, I would say that it's more a kind of aid, of assistance. Also because you know, not while there is a percentage of these people that would like to leave their own country in any case, there are plenty of them that wouldn't like to leave their house. You know, for example, in the case of climate change, of natural disasters, there are still a lot of Africans. They are very reluctant to be relocated elsewhere, because even if there is an imminent danger for them due, for example, to an imminent natural disaster, they refuse to leave their house. They refuse to leave where they were born. So, I mean, there are a lot of Africans that, in fact, they wouldn't like to leave their own countries, and the fact that other countries, they try to invest in this, of course, is done also in the interest of the host countries. Of course, as I said, of course, this country, they don't do this just for a matter of
goodness of their heart,
empathy, right? I mean, we agree on that. But on the other side, I mean, I think there is a more human attempt to help these people not to leave. Of course, one thing is to invest in those countries in order that the quality of the life of these people will improve, will increase. Other things, as has been done in the past, and I'm thinking also about Italy, is, for example, to fund Libyan authorities in order to keep migrants in the concentration camps there, in the sense that that was a different logic, because that was like the fact of, I don't want people coming to my shore. What happened to them in Libya, I don't care if they would be in the concentration camp or not. But something else is trying to invest money directly in the country of origin of these migrants in order to try to improve the quality of life of people in that country.
All right, I actually asked that question to get more clarity, and I didn't want to interrupt you, so you can finish up, but I'm afraid that's all the time we have. We barely have enough time when you come on this show. Thank you anyway for always obliging our request for appearance here. I hope to see you again soon.
Sure, Felicity. Thank you so much again.